Today we are going to begin Science Chapter 3, which is Cycles in Nature. It's a pretty short chapter, so we won't be on it for long. So Section 1 is what we will go over today, the cycles of matter, and then Section 2 will be ecological succession. So as you can see, like always, the songs are at the beginning. And I encourage you to come back and listen to the songs as you work because it will help you learn the material. So Section 1, the cycles of matter. We have 3 objectives today. You should be able to do the following by the end of the lesson. Diagram the water cycle, the carbon cycle, and the nitrogen cycle, and be able to explain the importance to living things for all 3 of these cycles. So the water cycle should already be common knowledge for you, so this should just be a review. It is, of course, the movement of water between the oceans, the atmosphere, the land, and living things. So it's that constant cycle of water over and over and over. During evaporation, we know that the sun's heat causes the water to change from a liquid to a gas, which we call a vapor. And then in the process of condensation, the water vapor cools and it returns back to liquid state. Then the water that falls from the atmosphere to the land and the oceans, we know that is precipitation, and it can be in different forms such as rain, snow, sleet, and hail. Most precipitation falls into the ocean. That's because there's more ocean than there is land. And the precipitation that falls on the land and flows into streams, rivers, and lakes also has another word. It's called runoff. And that means it doesn't soak into the ground, it runs off. The next word that we're going to talk about is groundwater. It is what it says it is. It's the precipitation that seeps into the ground and is stored between or within rocks. Groundwater slowly flows back into the soil, streams, the rivers, and the oceans. So, the process of evaporation, condensation, precipitation, over and over and over and over and over. The water cycle. You're going to go back and watch a brain pop and take the quiz on the water cycle. And here is a picture showing you how the water cycle operates. So you can see precipitation falls. Here we have our runoff or groundwater. It falls mainly into oceans, but also on the land and in lakes. Then it's evaporated back up. It condenses and then it falls back down. Here we have transpiration, which is what is given off by the trees, which is oxygen. So without water, we would not have any life at all on Earth. All organisms, all the way from the tiniest bacteria, all the way up to the largest animals and plants, everything within that are composed mostly of water. Water helps transport nutrients and waste within an organism. It helps regulate temperature. And all water that is taken in by an organism is eventually returned to the environment through the water cycle. So here is where you'll go back and watch the study jam on the water cycle. Besides water, though, we have 2 other cycles, and we're going to talk about the carbon cycle first. So the most common molecules in living things are organic molecules, and this simply means that they contain carbon. The exchange of carbon between the environment and living things is known as the carbon cycle. So think about the water cycle, but we're using different things now. So photosynthesis and respiration. We know that during photosynthesis, plants use the carbon dioxide from the air to make sugars. We know that most animals get the carbon and the energy that they need by eating those plants. Plants and animals break down the sugar molecules to release energy in a process called respiration. And in this respiration, this uses oxygen, releases carbon dioxide and water back into the environment. So all useful things for life here on Earth. You're going to go back and watch the brain pop on the carbon cycle and complete the quiz as well. Also within this cycle, we need to discuss decomposition and combustion. So we know that the breakdown of substances into simpler molecules is called decomposition. It decomposes. For example, when you have fungi and bacteria, that they decompose organic matter, meaning carbon dioxide and the water are returned back into the environment. So the process can start over again. And then combustion, it is the process of burning a substance like wood or fossil fuels. Combustion of organic matter releases carbon. Henceforth, the carbon cycle. You have a study jam that you're going to watch on the carbon cycle. And here is our image that depicts the carbon cycle. And you can see each of these processes that are taking place. So photosynthesis, here we have combustion, respiration, decomposition. So carbon is in all living things. Carbon is in soil and rock. It is also in fossil fuels. And then carbon dioxide is in the air. So such as the water cycle, the carbon cycle is breaking this carbon down into forms that we can use. And it's repeating this process over and over. Last but not least, we have the nitrogen cycle. So all living things need nitrogen in order to build proteins and DNA. The movement of nitrogen between the environment and living things is called the nitrogen cycle. So yet another cycle. So let's talk about the conversion of this nitrogen gas. About 78% of Earth's atmosphere is nitrogen gas. However, most organisms, such as us, we cannot use the nitrogen gas directly. So it has to be changed, converted into something. So bacteria that we have in the soil, they change the nitrogen gas into forms that plants can use. And this process is called nitrogen fixation. Other organisms get the nitrogen that they need by eating plants or animals that eat those plants. There's a brain pop that you're going to go back and watch on the nitrogen cycle and complete that quiz to help you further understand this. And then when organisms die, the decomposers that we talked about break down those remains. And the decomposition releases a form of nitrogen into the soil that the plants can use. And then again, certain types of bacteria that are in the soil convert that nitrogen to a gas, which is then returned to the atmosphere. So it cycles over and over. There's a study jam that you're going to go back and watch on the nitrogen cycle. Okay, here is a video that explains the nitrogen cycle in more depth. I'm not going to show you the whole thing right now. You need to go back and watch it though. I'm just going to scroll through it very quickly due to time. All right, due to the slowness of my internet, just please come back and watch that video. Okay, here we have the picture that describes the nitrogen cycle. Got nitrogen in the air. Lightning causes some nitrogen fixation to occur. Animals get nitrogen from plants, of course, from eating those plants. Plant roots take up nitrogen from the soil. You've got bacteria in the soil that convert nitrogen back to gas. And then the decomposition of dead animals and plants releases nitrogen into the soil. And the bacteria in the soil and the plant roots perform most of the nitrogen fixation that occurs. Okay, other forms of matter on Earth also pass through cycles. Many of the minerals that living cells need, such as calcium and phosphorus, are cycled through the environment, and you'll learn those in later years of school. And each of the cycles, they're all connected in many ways, and living organisms play a part in each of the cycles. This is the end of lesson 3.1. Next time, we will talk about ecological succession.